This is the house that Davis built. This is the stranger who's moving into the house that Davis built. This is Davis, who's just discovered the stranger living in his house.
What is happening?
Steve Martin. Goldie Hawn. She is the Housesitter.
I'd like for you to call me Dad.
Honey, are you okay?
Housesitter.
Hello guys, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my channel called Blast and the Past, and this time around I have a review of the film Housesitter from 1992, and this is the German Blu-ray edition, and the film stars Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn.
What is happening?
Well, if you just listen.
I'm listening.
All right.
So the chemistry between them is fantastic, and it's a great comedy directed by Frank Oz. So without further ado, let's sink our teeth into that. Buckle up, you may want to grab some popcorn if you feel like it, and let's get the ball rolling, shall we?
Hey, it's not so bad. Come on, everything's gonna be fine.
Let me start by sharing my thoughts on Housesitter. I saw it yesterday, not for the first time, because I remember that I had seen it several times. But you know me, I like coming back to the old films, especially if it's a comedy, if it's a good one also, so it's even more likely for me to come back to it. And in this case, if I'm not mistaken, it marks the first collaboration between Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn, but by no means the last one, because later on they would reunite in the film The Out-of-Towners, which actually was a remake of a film with Jack Lemmon, and I've seen both versions and both of them are fine, but the Jack Lemmon version is extremely nice because it's like a relic of the past.
Oh my God, we're being kidnapped.
I'm a business executive from a...
And you can rob me and starve me and break my teeth and my wife's ankles. I'm not leaving.
It was released many years ago, so it might have been in the 1960s or 70s, I'm not sure about it. But like I said, both editions, the original one and the remake, they are worth recommending.
Steve Martin, Goldie Hawn, and John Cleese.
Oh my God, he's dancing in ladies' clothes.
Oh! The Out-of-Towners.
However, coming back to Housesitter, so it's a very nice, wacky, crazy comedy. I think that there are many strong points regarding this motion picture. So first of all, like I said, the chemistry between the main leads. So Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn, they work perfectly together. They are a perfect match. So Steve Martin's character is this architect, a very high-strung one, pretty serious, but sometimes he has his crazy moments, and one of the moments in which he goes all the way, actually it contributes to one of his biggest failures in terms of his love life, and then he gets burned and he doesn't trust women anymore, at least not so much. So he has many problems in his love life, with his relationships. And by complete accident, he stumbles upon the character of Goldie Hawn, who is a waitress, a Hungarian one, and at least that's what Steve Martin's character thinks at the very beginning, or he presumes her to be, and she turns out to be quite a con artist, because she is very good at inventing, creating, making up stories about her life, about her past, whatever can help her achieve her means, her goals. And later on she cons a little bit Steve Martin, she pushes his character, to have a one-night stand with her, and he tells her about the house which he has.
I told you I'd only been in Boston for 3 weeks. I didn't know anybody. All I had was that cute little drawing you did of this house. You know, I knew it was in Dobbs Mill, and I knew that, you know, we're just sitting here, not doing anything.
Where did all this furniture come from?
Nobody leaves her. Probably he's already thinking about selling it just to make a profit. And she decides to go there because she doesn't know what to do with her life, and she's a little bit down on her luck in terms of the job, in terms of the income, so she decides to give it a go. Just another crazy idea in her otherwise also crazy, wacky life, and she pretends to be Steve Martin's character's wife. And actually, in this small town community, everybody takes a liking to her. So everybody is charmed by her personality, by how beautiful, attractive she is, by how down-to-earth she is, this kind of an outgoing woman, a very talkative one, very friendly, that you just hit it off at first sight with. And
Reverend Lipton? In the brief time I've gotten to know Gwen, I must say I was shocked, Newton, when yesterday your parents came to me and told me that you were both experiencing difficulties.
That's why she manages to con everybody, but the cat is soon out of the bag, because Steve Martin really wants to sell the house. He goes there to visit it and he sees that it's fully furnished, and there is actually a house sitter there, which would be the Goldie Hawn's character. And he's so surprised, but he decides to play with the narrative, because he would like to recuperate his old love interest, his old flame, who dumped him when she sold the house. That's the beginning of the film, and he sees a chance for him if he plays along with the lies. So he gets engrossed into that, and what happens next, trust me, it will be one surprise after another, and it leads to many crazy, funny, hilarious situations. So definitely I may say that it's a pure comedy gold in terms of the narrative and in terms of how well the script is written, is devised. So it is kind of believable even. That's another strong point of it.
Try to be specific.
Well, like those art classes I wanted to take. And like sometimes I really want to go to the theater,
So apart from the performances, apart from the acting, it's also the script, the narrative, the scenario that holds all the pieces together. And trust me, it's also a romantic comedy, so it's a nice combination of two genres. It's funny, it's a bit emotional, a bit touching whenever it needs to, especially the closer to the end it gets. So I think that there is something nice for everybody. That's exactly why I like coming back to this film. And definitely the next film on my list would be The Out-of-Towners, with the same duo. That is under one condition, if I can get my hands on it, because it's not so easily available, unfortunately. But Housesitter is definitely a good viewing, it's a good watch, so it comes highly recommended if you want to have a few laughs, if you want to relax, if you want to enjoy a nice romantic comedy. This is a film to go to, that's for sure.
Honey, they should really change their sign to "We have car."
Regarding the Blu-ray release published by Koch Media, this German studio, so it's a pretty good one. I must say that the film retains this filmic presentation. There is a bit of the grain, but it's this natural one. There are some specks, like even in this particular scene, you can see that it hasn't been touched in any artificial way, because you can see this filmic grain. I'm not sure whether it's visible from this point of view, from this perspective, but you can see some specks. But it adds some charm, additional charm to this Blu-ray release, because it makes it more like a filmic presentation, like it was screened at the cinema back in the day in 1992. So I like this presentation, and I remember that even the DVD release, it was kind of a decent one, as far as I remember. But the Blu-ray release is definitely a step up in comparison with the DVD format. So it's definitely worth having in your collection, if not for the picture quality, just for the film itself alone, on its own, because it's a nice comedy, a nice romantic comedy. However, coming back to that, so the colors are okay, they are maybe not extremely vibrant, but I think that generally this release does its job. And I like this full screen format, this matte format. I'm not sure whether it's called like that, but again, there are no margins at the top and at the bottom of the screen, which I prefer. I know that some people like this cinematic experience when the picture is wider, but in my case I love this one. Even in this scene you can see the details on the products in terms of this scene in a shop. In the background, in the foreground, everything is crisp, everything is sharp, the way it's supposed to be. So I'm pretty sure that it can't have looked much better at the cinema when it was screened on a film reel. Perhaps a little bit more so, but I think that it's very faithful to the original source. So even if it is released in the future on the 4K format, I'm not sure whether it could be like a jaw-dropping improvement in terms of the picture quality in comparison with this Blu-ray release. And it has also the German subtitles, so it's good for German learners, for example, like myself. So I just started my adventure with the German language. And also it has the German dubbing, for those who are interested in that.
Der Housesitter. Nenn mich doch bitte.
But the picture itself, once again, so I'm really satisfied with that. So all in all, kudos, a shout out to Koch Media for having released this nice presentation and Housesitter on the Blu-ray format. Thank you very much, I appreciate it, and I would like to get my hands on more Koch Media releases.
Eine einmalige Nummer dauert nicht ewig.
Was sagst du, Gwen? Gwen, wann sind wir fertig und wo gehen wir hin?
Es macht aber Spaß.
By the way, a fun fact is that Goldie Hawn in this film, she was around 47 years old. My goodness, can you imagine that? Because just like Steve Martin, she was born in 1945 and the film was released in 1992, so, you know, just basic maths, let's do the calculations, it's around 47 years old. And really, she's so attractive, so hot, if I may say so, in a good way, that I couldn't believe my eyes. Because later on, so you can imagine that in her 50s, her beauty started to fade, unfortunately, like in the film That Becomes Her. But, you know, when you are a woman and you are in your 50s, so it's very difficult to retain this beauty. And in her case, I think that she did a splendid job. So she looked very attractive for a long time. So a shout out to Goldie Hawn, really. And she had a break from acting. She came back with this film, this comedy, I don't remember, but she played there with another blonde actress, and that was a debacle, that was a disaster.
Go. I'm gonna count down, I'm gonna do it.
Please, please.
199.
But in Housesitter, really, she's so beautiful that I can't praise her enough. In her own sense, of course. Because I know that her type of appearance, it's not to everybody's liking. Not all of the men find her so much attractive, but I think that, you know, if you consider her age at the time of the filming of this motion picture, so she was around 47 years old, so then you have to admire both her silhouette and how she looked like in terms of her appearance, the whole appearance, but like I said, also the body. So she was in a fantastic shape for her age, and generally not only for her age. So I think that many younger women could envy her for having this kind of a perfect silhouette. So she did her best to stay young for as long as possible. So once again, props and kudos to Goldie Hawn. A great actress, and I think that also she's a very nice, likable person in private life. I would like to think so, at least.
And Goldie Hawn.
Look at me. I'm soaking wet.
Death becomes her.
And now let's move on to a plot summary. In this case, it's the one from the IMDb website, and it was prepared by Jeremy Perkins. When his longtime girlfriend Becky says no to marriage and the house he has built, architect Newton Davis, Steve Martin, is crushed. 3 months later, a one-night liaison with live wire waitress Gwen, Goldie Hawn, gets out of control when she tracks down the dream house, moves in and lets it be known locally that she and Newton are married. Everyone in the small town takes to her, including his parents, while Becky shows renewed interest. When Newton realizes the situation, he suggests to Gwen that continuing the deception might have advantages for both of them. Props to Jeremy Perkins.
Well, you had your chance with him. You had it building your damn tree house and on your adventure walks, and on the day he offered you this house and you blew it.
Housesitter might have not been the most critically acclaimed film of that era of its time, because the reviews probably were kind of mixed. However, it grossed definitely a lot at the box office, because the budget of the film was around $26 million and it grossed almost $95 million. So even if you add the marketing cost, that was a big success. So no wonder that they decided to follow it up later on with another cooperation between the duo with the Out-of-Towners. However, in terms of the critical acclaimed, so Roger Ebert liked it pretty much, because he gave it 3 out of 4 stars, and he wrote something along the lines that actually it was a sweet and a funny comedy, not a masterpiece in any way, but thanks to the well-crafted, modulated performances of the main leads, it worked just perfectly, so everything was right in this case. Like he mentions in his review, maybe it will never enter the Hall of Fame of Hollywood in terms of being the best comedies ever. However, it offers a very good chance to relax, to have a few laughs, just to spend a nice time together with Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn.
For starters, let's begin by both of you trying once again.
And also one of the points he makes in his review, in his take on Housesitter, is that generally it's very difficult to have a comedy in which the characters, they are so foolish that they don't realize they actually keep falling in love a little bit, that there is something flourishing between them. But in this case, since generally the relationship is based on a web of deception, a web of lies, that's why it's actually believable. It is credible that both characters are so caught up with their white lies and not so white lies, because it becomes more and more aggravated the further the narrative progresses, that they don't realize that actually there may be something in the air between them. So from the point of view of an outsider, it may be more visible that maybe they started taking a liking towards each other, but they are definitely not aware of that, especially not at the beginning, because Steve Martin's character, he is angry at her, as you can imagine, because she started living in his house, which he wanted to sell.
To be your wife?
No.
Well, Travis thinks I'm good enough, and Harvey and Lorraine think I'm good enough.
This coffee table.
But when he spots a chance to get back his old flame, then he enters this narrative, this web of lies. And actually he becomes so good at it that almost he's on a par with Becky, with Goldie Hawn's character later on. So that's another comic element of this film, and that's why it works just fine in terms of the plot, its development, and its believability. So it may be just a silly comedy, like some people would say on the one hand, but still, even a silly comedy needs to be contained within the bounds of reality. And Housesitter thankfully never steps out of those boundaries. It's always just credible enough.
Insane?
No, I just told him to go ahead and put it on our account.
As Roger Ebert puts it in his review, it is an old truth of acting that comedy is harder than tragedy. It may be true. It is certainly true that much of the humor in Housesitter is generated by the carefully modulated performances of Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn. Their relationship is made of nuances and denials, and at any moment they could have brought the movie tumbling down to the level of a sitcom, but they never do. And as he sums up the review of his film in the final part of it, Housesitter is finally just a sweet and funny movie rather than a comic masterpiece, but I think that's fine. It's what the movie wants to be. It's sympathetic, perceptive, cynical on the surface, warm at heart. The only question it leaves unanswered is whether you wouldn't get awfully cold in a New England winter walking down that glass-enclosed passage to the bedroom. And now let's move on to some pieces of trivia featured on the IMDb website. So the first one is about the main house presented in the film. The house was built as a standing set in Concord, Massachusetts. However, it was torn down soon after filming ended. Oh, that's a shame, because it looks very cozy, doesn't it? Another piece of trivia is about Goldie Hawn and the main female lead. Meg Ryan was originally set to star as Gwen. When Ryan declined, the producers opted for Kim Basinger, but Basinger also declined, so Goldie Hawn took the part, and she is really fantastic as Gwen. To be honest, Meg Ryan, maybe she would be fine, because I think that still there will be a lot of chemistry between Meg Ryan and Steve Martin, but Kim Basinger in a comedy of this sort, I'm not so sure about it, that actually it would have been a good choice. Kim Basinger is very good as attractive ladies, but not in comedies, I would say. Rather more dramatic or just serious films, like, of course, probably you remember Batman or 9.5 Weeks. And also she cooperated with Alec Baldwin. I remember there was The Marrying Man, a comedy.
Alec Baldwin.
I can't believe you did that!
And Kim Basinger.
Oh, wait! I'm going!
The Marrying Man.
It marks maybe even their first cooperation together. However, like I said, so probably it wasn't her biggest forte, comedies and this kind of a repertoire. So I really can't see Kim Basinger in that role, playing it equally well to Goldie Hawn. Meg Ryan, maybe, because she's of course known for many romantic comedies and her collaboration with Tom Hanks, but Goldie Hawn, after all, it was, I think, a good call.
Dan Aykroyd.
Your stepmother is not an alien.
Kim Basinger.
For an astronomer, you have the most wonderful fire.
My stepmother is an alien.
Alas, there are not too many pieces of trivia on the film on the IMDb website, but here's another one. This is the first of two movies starring Goldie Hawn and Steve Martin, the other one being The Out of Towners. Or maybe that is a shame that actually there hasn't been more of their cooperation together, but both of them are in the business, back in the business you could say, because if I'm not mistaken, both of them had bigger or minor or smaller breaks from the Hollywood industry, from starring in films, because Goldie Hawn has come back quite recently, and Steve Martin I think a little bit earlier from her, but still, probably both of them were just tied with the Hollywood industry, with Hollyweird. However, never say never. So maybe there will be yet another one with them, another film, another cooperation, if they are given a chance, and a good script, of course.
Never.
Another short piece of trivia. In Taiwan, this film is known as Half a Wife in My Soup. Oh, that's surprising. That's pretty unexpected, isn't it? Another piece of trivia regarding Goldie Hawn and her character. When Steve Martin's character meets Goldie Hawn's Gwen, who is working as a waitress in a Hungarian restaurant, he goes along in an ironic fashion with her posing as a Hungarian. In actual fact, Goldie Hawn is half Hungarian on her mother's side. Oh, to be honest, I wasn't aware of her roots, but there is always something interesting, I guess, about Hollywood stars, isn't there?
You lied to me. Nothing new, I realize. But just for the record, you lied about having no place to go, didn't you?
And last but not least, Steve Martin also plays an architect in the movie It's Complicated. And I like this one actually, so it was released in the 2010s, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe 2008 or 9, something like this. And also it included Alec Baldwin and Meryl Streep in the cast. And I remember that it was a pretty nice romantic comedy. So Meryl Streep's character couldn't decide between the guys. So I think that officially she was with Steve Martin, but she cheated on him with Alec Baldwin. I mean, their characters. But that was a pretty good romantic comedy. I need to come back to it. If I'm not mistaken, I have it somewhere on Blu-ray. So I may just give it a go. Because my general impression is of that film that it was a good motion picture. It was kind of a funny.
It's complicated.
Obviously, it's not from the 1980s and the 1990s. Probably two of my favorite decades in terms of the film industry. However, later on also we have many good comedies. So, like I said, maybe I can give it a go. And guys, if you have seen It's Complicated, maybe you could recommend it to me as another film to review, to watch again. So I'm waiting for your comments. On Housesitter, of course, but also on It's Complicated. Why not? Please share your thoughts on both films with me in the comment section under this video.
Mother! What?
Now let's move on to Frank Oz, the director of Housesitter. Actually, he's a very renowned figure in the Hollywood industry, because if I'm not mistaken, he started his career for real with Dark Crystal in 1982.
The Dark Crystal.
And that was a very good fantasy film with the characters like the Muppets. So those were just animatronic monsters. And later on in 1984 there was the film The Muppets Take Manhattan, another one using animatronics and puppets, which Frank Oz was and is known for.
Jim Henson Home Entertainment presents Jump on board for big time fun. What are we waiting for? Jim Henson's The Muppets Take Manhattan.
And we also have such good films like Dirty Rotten Scoundrel with Steve Martin and Michael Caine, a fantastic duo, another crazy comedy about two con artists. So in this case, we have just one con artist, but Steve Martin also becomes kind of a one later on. And in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, we have definitely two con artists who cooperate together just to make a profit, to get out, to squeeze out as much money from foolish people, from naive people as possible.
You mustn't turn your back on them for a second.
And also we have The Indian in the Cupboard. I haven't seen it, but I've heard good opinions about it, that it's a nice family, kind of a comedy, adventure film. It's hard to pinpoint the exact genre.
I will be with you when the sun rises.
One more time.
The Indian in the Cupboard.
And also I remember that there was Inside Out with Kevin Kline.
Kevin Kline. Look at me. Do I look like a homosexual? In and out.
It was about a man who pretended to be homosexual, and he lived in a kind of a small town, if I'm not mistaken, and it led to many problems later on. I'm not exactly sure about the plot, but maybe he was mistaken for a homosexual person, and later on he had to play along the narrative. Something like this, but it also was a good film.
I'd like to dedicate this whole night to a great guy and a great teacher, to Howard Brackett from Greenleaf, Indiana.
A bombshell is about to drop.
And he's gay.
And we had also the score starring Robert De Niro, Marlon Brando and Edward Norton, and it was this kind of film like Usual Suspects. So there was a big plot twist, especially the closer to the end the film got. So it's a must-see.
We either work this out right now or I will take you down.
And it's something atypical for Frank Oz, because he is known generally for quite a different repertoire. And later on we had The Stepford Wives with Nicole Kidman and Matthew Broderick.
What have they done to you?
Goodbye! Goodbye! Goodbye!
And I've seen this film a couple of times. I liked it, I would like to come back to it, although I know that it wasn't very critically acclaimed, and it might have been even a remake of an older one. However, like I said, I like this kind of an idea. So you have the idealistic version of the 1950s, however there is a darker side to that. Because there are some women who are robots or who are programmed, so that's also a little bit crazy, a little bit wacky, but I love the setting. Whenever you have the 1950s, this seemingly perfect small town community, and there is something going on behind the closed doors of the Levitt towns, or those small towns with white picket fences. And that was a very well done film. If I'm not mistaken, if I remember it well, I need to come back to it just to vouch for my opinion.
This place does something to people. All of the women are always smiling.
Maybe I'm not moving very chronologically in terms of his portfolio, his films. However, in 1991 there was this film What About Bob? And I've never seen it, but just considering the director Frank Oz and also the cast, so a cooperation between Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss, of all people in the Hollywood industry. So I guess just for this fact alone, it must be a kind of an interesting position.
Is this some radical new therapy? You see?
What About Bob?
And Bowfinger with Steve Martin again and Eddie Murphy. A pretty underappreciated comedy, because it was a kind of a like a reality show. It was using that fad.
Awesome. You're gonna be a star.
Because in the late 1990s, at the beginning of the 2000s, there was a big fad for reality shows generally. And also there were many motion pictures published on this topic. So it started with The Truman Show, a nice, fantastic film by Peter Weir. It's a must-see with Jim Carrey when he tried more dramatic roles.
What if you were watched every moment of your life? Jim Carrey, The Truman Show. Watch what happened.
Later on you also had At TV with Matthew McConaughey, which was kind of an interesting take on the reality show industry, how far people can get just to get 5, 10 or 15 minutes of fame.
Matthew McConaughey, Ed TV.
However, Bowfinger, it was definitely an underappreciated film. And I think that it has developed a little bit of a cult following, so people right now, they appreciate it more. They hold it in a higher esteem than they did before. And also you have a great cooperation between Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy. So what more can you want? Two great comedians paired together in one film, in a nice comedy with a bigger budget, directed by a specialist, especially in comedies. So it's also a film worth recommending.
Welcome aboard. Here's your wardrobe.
Just to sum it up, guys, I'm really glad that I saw this film yesterday for the umpteenth time. I'm not sure which one, to be honest, but I like coming back to the good old films, especially if they are comedies, they are tested. I know that I will just laugh along the narrative all the way throughout the screening, and that was exactly the case with Housesitter. So sometimes you need a tested film. You know that although it won't be very surprising to you, you'll just have a good time watching it and you will relax, you can kick back, stop thinking about the problems. So that's why I would like to highly recommend this film to you.
All right, I'll stay. Just keep your wallet in your pocket, Davis.
And please share your thoughts on this film if you have seen it. If not, so maybe please let me know if you are planning on watching it. So like I've said, I'm very glad about this fact, and I'm very glad that I have it on a physical media, so on this Blu-ray format, especially this one, this release, released by Koch Media, this German label. It's worth recommending, it's worth having, because the picture quality, as you can clearly see on the screen right now, maybe it's nothing to write home about, but it's very decent, it's even more than decent. So you have this filmic presentation, this cinematographic experience, and that's why I would like to spread a good word about films like this, about nice feel-good comedies, but also about the physical media, the format, the Blu-ray format in particular. But also I'm a fan of DVDs, that format, because like for example yesterday I had a double feature, so I saw the film Death to Smoochie from 2002, which is a pretty underappreciated dark comedy, so it flopped at the cinema.
Robin Williams, Edward Norton, Danny DeVito, Catherine Keener.
What does it all mean?
Death to Smoochie.
But just to keep it short, to cut to the chase, so that was a very good DVD release. It was only a mere DVD release, however the picture quality was on a par with some poorer Blu-rays, so this is quite an achievement. So once again, I don't want to bore you to death, guys, but please consider having a collection, building your collection, and supporting physical media, and also supporting my channel by watching it, by recommending the videos. So I would really appreciate it, because it keeps me motivating, it keeps my juices flowing. Whenever I have a chance to spread a good word, and I see that there's some interaction with the audience like yourself. So yours truly would really appreciate it if you could give the video the thumbs up and share your comments on the film, and also like it and recommend it to your friends.
One is glad to be of service.
But coming back to the film, so really, it's a very good comedy from the 1990s. You can feel that atmosphere, that the films were filmed differently. So their budgets were bigger, even for comedies, and you had very nice charismatic actors, and sometimes those experiments with the cast, they work for the better, because it was their first cooperation, but not the last one. And in the Out-of-Towners, they work together equally well. So props to the cast, Steve Martin, Goldie Hawn, Frank Oz, the director, and also to Koch Media for having released this film on Blu-ray. Thank you very much for that. As always, thank you very much for your attention, guys. I hope that you have enjoyed my short review, my 2 cents on the film Housesitter from 1992. If you have liked this review, please give the video the thumbs up, please share your comments on the film itself, on the performances of the main leads, so Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn, also on the directory of Frank Oz, and on my performance, should you feel like it. If you are not subscribed to this channel, please consider subscribing to it. And also, if you could recommend my video review to your friends, I would be much obliged. And I hope to see you guys next time. I'll catch you up later. Cheers, take care, bye.
I love you, Gwen.
Actually, it's Jessica.